Let's see, I am Candace Shibley with Utah State University Extension and the Center for Water Efficient Landscaping. And these webinars are brought to you by the Center for Water Efficient Landscaping as well as USU Extension. Today, we are fortunate enough to have Julius Duncan with us. Julius is an environmental engineer with the EPA WaterSense program. He's been with WaterSense for the past 3 years and works on outdoor product research and coordinates with the professional certifying organizations. And he's helped develop a lot of tools and resources that irrigation professionals and water utilities can use to learn about outdoor water efficiency. And so today he's going to talk about some of those great tools, specifically using the outdoor water budget to estimate landscape water need. There are a few links that he's going to mention throughout his presentation, and I'll drop those into the chat box so you guys have access to those. I'll also put a link to the CWEL website in the chat box for people wanting CEUs to maintain that certification. The CWEL CEUs are managed by each individual, so that's something you put in on your own through your own account. And again, I'll add that link. So let's see, if you guys have questions as we go along, please use the Q&A box and we'll answer those as we get to them. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Julius.
All right, thank you, Candace. And I'm going to take just a second to go ahead and share my screen, get the presentation up. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julius Duncan. I'm with the EPA WaterSense program, and I'm the environmental engineer for their outdoors program. So I work a lot with research on outdoors products, as well as our professional certifying organizations program, which certifies programs that teach irrigation professionals. So today I'm going to go over our WaterSense water budget tool. I'll explain what it is, where to find it, and then give a few examples on how to use it. After that, I'll also go into some tips on how to create a water efficient landscape based on the water budget tool. So first, I'll start off with a little bit of background on the WaterSense program. WaterSense is a voluntary EPA partnership program that was started in 2006 to identify water efficient products, homes, practices, and programs. The WaterSense label is shown here, and you can find it on water efficient products. And I'll go into a little detail on what the product categories are, but they're certified for both water efficiency and performance. And they're independently certified. And to date, we have about 31,000 different models of products that have the WaterSense label. In addition to labeling products, homes, and certification programs, we try to approach water efficiency from many angles. We have products, practices, and people. Products such as our water efficient products have the label. We have practices, and you can see here the best management practices, WaterSense at Work. That's our guide, and we produce other types of guides that can help you learn more about water efficiency. And then, of course, people. We have partners around the country who help to spread the word about water efficiency. As I mentioned, we have about 31,000 certified product models on the market already. That includes toilets, urinals, shower heads, and faucets. And then for outdoor products, we have recently labeled spray sprinkler bodies with integral pressure regulation. And we have irrigation controllers. And I'll be talking a little bit more about both of those later on in the presentation. So first, we'll go into a little detail on how is water used outdoors. Typically, if you have a landscape, you'll probably have an in-ground irrigation system. And that includes components such as sprinklers, irrigation controllers, valves, pipes. You may have sprinkler or micro irrigation, and it can vary from landscape to landscape. But it's important to maintain that landscape and maintain that irrigation system so that you don't lose water and that you can be water efficient. Other ways that water is used outdoors in general, we have fountains, ponds, or you may even have pools and spas, and these also may experience water loss in some cases from evaporation through the cleaning process, mineral buildup, or from just leaks and splashing. With the WaterSense Water Budget tool, we're going to look more specifically, it looks more specifically at landscapes. And it's based on the WaterSense Labeled Homes program. It was originally developed to support our Labeled Homes program. And we just recently put out our spec for the WaterSense Labeled Homes version 2.0, and that will no longer use the Water Budget tool, but you can still use the tool yourself for your own landscape and to get an idea of how to design a water efficient landscape. On the first page, and you can find the Water Budget tool on our website, which I've got listed here. When you first go to it, you'll see step 1, which is your input for your zip code and your landscape size. And now that landscape size is going to be used to determine your water budget allowance. And your zip code is going to be used because the tool can pull from local weather data. So it helps to identify what your peak watering period is going to be and what your evaporation and rainfall rates are going to be. In the next step, we'll go through and look at this example landscape that I put together here. So this is kind of a basic landscape. You've got a house, you've got a driveway, and then you've got this majority turf grass area with a few shrubs and trees. So in the step 2, you go through and you will actually put in each of the zones of your landscape based on that total area. And that area will not include any of the hardscaped areas such as your driveways, sidewalks, or your rooftop for your house. So you put in that area of turf grass, we've got the trees, shrubs, and you put in the type of irrigation that you're using, or if this is going to be a new landscape that you expect to be using. And once you put that in, the tool will give you an output of your water, what it expects your water usage to be. So in this case, we have a water allowance, which is from an ideal landscape of 82,000 gallons. But our actual water usage, based on what we've designed so far, is closer to 100,000 gallons per month. This is going to be a monthly water balance. And as you can see, it's pointed out that that's going to be too high. So we can start thinking of ways that we can reduce that water use or reduce the expected water use. And so I have a second example on the next slide where we have a more water efficient landscape where we've used a little bit less turf grass and we've kind of combined the use of more area for trees and shrubs as well as even a flower garden. And so when you put that into the water budget tool, now it's showing us that we're using 80,000 instead of the 82 that the water allowance shows. So that's 80,000 gallons of water per month for this for this landscape, which is less than our water allowance. And so that's what we want to see. And then of course there are ways in practice you can reduce that water use even further. For example, some of those trees, if they're established, rather than using irrigation on them at all, you might be able to pull that irrigation away or water them less often. You can also collect rainfall from your rooftop and even install things such as porous pavements or gravel sidewalks rather than hardscapes, and that'll help you keep more of that water on site and rather than losing it going straight to the drains. Now, if you're in a situation where maybe you aren't able to get online at any moment, or if you just want an offline version of the water budget tool, we also have it in Excel format. And initially, it may look a little difficult to understand, but it's actually just as simple to use as the online version. So when you first open it up, you'll see the kind of in that same format of steps 1, 2, and 3 that we have. And you can put in initially, your own information, and you're going to need to look up from the water budget data finder, your information for your peak irrigation month, evapotranspiration, and rainfall during your peak irrigation, peak month. And so we can go into that on our next slide with the water budget data finder. And that's also available on our website, and the link is provided here. And so as you see, you put in your zip code, and it gives you the peak month. And as well as the ET value and the rainfall for that peak month. And you'll be able to take that information and put that into the Excel spreadsheet, and I'll show you where those go on the next couple of slides. So just like in our step 1 of the online version, in the Excel version, you're going to put in your total landscape area, not including any hardscapes or rooftops. And then you can put in the average monthly reference evapotranspiration, which is from that from the previous slide. So once you put that data in, the spreadsheet then gives you your initial output. And so the first thing you're going to see is the monthly baseline. The monthly baseline is based on irrigating the entire landscape in your peak watering month, assuming that there is no rainfall. So this may not necessarily be what you'd see in the actual month, but it's showing you on the high end what you could expect to see out of irrigation. The second output we've got there is the monthly landscape water allowance. So that's a 70% reduction from your monthly baseline. And so that's just there to show you what your target is going to be. And so you're targeting cutting your irrigation by about 70%, or I'm sorry, cutting it by 30% down to that 70% mark. So next we're going on to the step 2 of the table. And in that, you can put in from that earlier slide, the average monthly rainfall number that you got. And so that goes in there. And then just like in step 2 of our online version, you put in the rest of your information for each of the zones of your landscape. So you put in that information for the turf grass, the trees, the shrubs, the area that each zone is going to cover, as well as the irrigation type that's used. And just like before, I've used that same data set that I was using. And so that's going to show you what's going to come up in step 3 for your final answer. Now, some other helpful information within the spreadsheet just goes over what constants are being used by the tool. So first, we've got the constants for your plant factor. And that's just basically when you select either trees, shrubs, turf grass, or ground cover, or even if you have a pool or spa, it's gonna, these are the constants that it uses as the plant factor. You've also got a table for distribution uniformity based on the different type of irrigation that you use, whether it's drip, freak spray, micro spray, or rotary irrigation. And then lastly, if you're not sure, especially if you've got a new landscape and you're not quite sure which irrigation type would go with the different plant type, the water budget tool also has just a quick table on which irrigation types can be used with that plant type. Excuse me. So in our final step, it's just like the online version where it's going to give you that comparison between your landscape water allowance, that's the LWA on the left, and in our first example for the less water efficient landscape, we had a water allowance of a little bit more than 80,000 gallons, but based on the plants that we were using and the irrigation type that we were using, or the irrigation combination we were using, we're closer to a little over 100,000 gallons per month. So that's going to be a lot higher, and it just shows you kind of that answer there of no, this does not meet that water budget criteria. So plugging in the same numbers as our water efficient landscape approach, you now see again that you've got on the left your 84,000 gallons for the landscape water allowance, and then our landscape water requirement, which is based on the plant type and the irrigation type we used, which if you remember, we switched that from a lot of different spray irrigation over to drip irrigation. Now it cuts it a lot closer to our water allowance. So now we have a water efficient landscape. And so those are the two tools, two versions of the tool that we have online, as well as the Excel version. And as Candace mentioned, they'll be available as links that you can go check out as well. So the water budget tool concentrates on two aspects. It concentrates on landscaping as well as irrigation. And first we'll go into landscaping. So a well-designed landscape has healthy soils, appropriate grading, mulching, drought-tolerant or native plants, minimal turf area, as well as hydrozoning. When looking into a new landscape, or if you're planning to renovate your landscape, consider using a landscape professional that's been trained and certified in water efficient and climate appropriate landscaping. So going down that list of what are some of the good ways to have a good landscape and a healthy landscape, a lot of it starts with that healthy soil. And a healthy soil is good because it helps for water to infiltrate the soil better. It helps to store water better. And you also have healthier plants that promotes deep root growth and deep irrigation for those plants to hold water longer. You also want to use mulch to trap in nutrients into the soil. And and then if you've got areas of your soil or your landscape that get a lot of high traffic or regular foot traffic, you're going to want to aerate that a little more often so that you can continue to promote healthy soil and healthy irrigation. Next, you want to think about which plants you're using in the landscape. You're going to want plants that are climate appropriate to your region and based on the amount of sun or shade area that you're going to have. You want to use drought tolerant plants and climate appropriate plants. That way they require less irrigation or irrigation less often and are more likely to survive and more equipped to survive with the average rainfall for your area. Shade trees are really helpful as well and can help to keep the landscape cool. Strip grass, especially next to sidewalks, you want to minimize the use of that as much as possible since those areas are difficult to irrigate efficiently. They're more prone to have overspray or just irrigation that's not perfectly tuned to just that strip of grass area. And then rain gardens. Rain gardens are very good at collecting a lot of water or collecting that rainfall and holding it on your landscape rather than having that runoff just go directly into storm drains. The other part of the water budget tool concentrates on irrigation. And it's estimated that up to 50% of water that's used for irrigation is lost due to factors such as wind, evaporation, and overwatering. And these things can sometimes be caused by either poor irrigation design, not being installed or maintained properly, and sometimes it's even due to just improper scheduling. One way to schedule your irrigation more efficiently is to use an irrigation controller. And they come as either smart controllers or clock timers, and they're used much like a thermostat for your landscape, where they will turn on your irrigation and turn it off at the specific or at the program times. When looking for a irrigation controller, consider a WaterSense labeled weather-based irrigation controller. These controllers use local weather data in order to tailor your irrigation schedule more appropriately for your region and for your landscape. They take inputs such as average ET for the day. Some of them are able to either predict or have a historical record of rainfall. And they also can be connected to other external devices such as a rain sensor, temperature sensor, and soil moisture sensors for more accurate readings about your landscape. as you look over your landscape, if you've got old sprinklers or you have outdated sprinklers, consider replacing them with more updated water efficient sprinklers. We have WaterSense labeled spray sprinkler bodies with internal pressure regulation. And the reason these are helpful is they take the incoming pressure, especially if you have high incoming pressure, and they reduce that down to the efficient range for your sprinkler head so that you no longer have any issues with overspraying or misting that can be caused by high pressure zones. Micro irrigation is another way to reduce your water use. And it's good for areas such as trees, shrubs, and flower gardens because it gets water directly to the root zone where it's used the most. And when you're designing your system or retrofitting your system with new sprinkler heads, ensure that the spray from the sprinkler head is long enough to reach the nearest sprinkler heads without going over. And this is, excuse me, this is called head-to-head coverage. And the example here, that's what this image is showing, where each sprinkler, the spray from each sprinkler is able to reach a near sprinkler, and it gets more even coverage than if they were designed inefficiently. So when looking over your, or looking into redoing your irrigation system, or if you're planning to install a new irrigation system or landscape, consider using an irrigation professional. They help to ensure that your system is efficiently designed and maintained, and irrigation professionals are going to be tested on water efficient techniques and technologies so that they are proven to know that knowledge and can help you as well. At WaterSense, we have certified irrigation professionals, and they're certified for 3 different aspects of irrigation system management. The first is irrigation system design, and they are taught about how to design a water efficient system based on your region and landscape characteristics. Next, we have irrigation maintenance, irrigation installation, and maintenance professionals who are trained on how to properly install and design your irrigation system and maintain it, as well as follow up and make sure that it's working later on. And lastly, we have irrigation auditors, and they can audit the system once it has been installed. And they're trained on aspects that include water efficiency of the system, which irrigation types to use, which plants to use, and other ways that you can design a water efficient landscape. So both of those links are also being provided here. The first link is to if you'd like more information on irrigation professionals, including if you would like to become a certified irrigation professional. And the second link is for our irrigation professional search tool, where you can search for irrigation professionals based on your location. So using some of those things that we've talked about today, here are just a few examples of water savings that you might be able to see. So if you replace your standard clock timer with a WaterSense labeled controller, that can reduce your irrigation water use by around 15%. If you use spray sprinkler bodies with the internal pressure regulation, compare that to the standard pop-up sprinklers without any pressure regulation, you could reduce your water use by as much as 22%. And then using drip irrigation, that uses 50% less water than conventional sprinkler systems. So May is all about sprinkler spruce up. Whether you're a utility looking to engage with your customers or an irrigation professional looking to design a water efficient landscape, these guys can help you spread the word about water efficiency. All of these resources are available on the WaterSense website. On the left-hand side, we have a guide on weather-based irrigation controllers. And that guide goes over all of the things you'd need to know when you're looking to buy a new irrigation controller, things to look for, such as whether you need to control a lot of zones or just a few, as well as information on how to program it, and if you'd like to use a professional, what to ask them for when looking at a controller. On the right-hand side, we have our guide for water smart landscapes. That guide goes through all of the different factors that I've discussed here in this presentation, including information about landscaping, healthy soils, mulching, using the right plant in the right place, and also gives some examples of a water efficient landscape. And that can be based on different regions as well, and has a few picture examples of a water efficient landscape, so that you can kind of see that it doesn't have to be all one way, or less plants or less of the same type of plant in different area, but rather a variety, and that it can still look like a nice landscape. And last year we released 2 guides on micro irrigation, one for irrigation professionals and one for homeowners. Irrigation Professionals guide goes over tips and installation information that professionals can use when talking to their customers about micro irrigation. It also goes over the components that are used, gives some examples of how it fits in the landscape, and includes some other helpful tips on general landscaping, such as how to keep a healthy soil, how water flows through the soil, and the different plant types and their water recommendations. For the homeowner guide, it's a little bit simpler than the professionals guide. Excuse me. But also gives homeowners helpful information that they can use if they'd like to install irrigation, install micro irrigation themselves, or things that they should consider when talking to a professional about micro irrigation. And again, that link is provided here, and I believe Candace is providing that link in the notes as well. All right. Thank you for everyone participating today. If you have any questions, write them into the chat box.
Hopefully we'll see you all next month. And Julius, thank you very much for presenting for us. That was really great and informative. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you as well for inviting me. I was happy to present and glad I could answer all of the questions. And of course, my email is out there as well. So if anyone would like to email me directly with any of their questions, please feel free.
Perfect. Thank you all. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.